everyone. Good morning. This is Exploring Automation with Lavanya Mohan. Hi, Lavanya.
Hi.
And I'm Ajay Balamurgadas. And today's session is on code review. So let's get started. Let me also quickly share my screen with Lavanya so that she sees what I'm writing and she can pin the screen if required. There you go. So, first question first. What is code review, Lavanya?
Um, so when somebody writes code to solve a particular problem, there
Mhm.
is another person who, at least one or maybe more people who look at the code to see if it does a couple of things that they expect it to do. So it could be whether the functionality works, that's one. But
Mhm.
also whether a couple of other things like whether it's readable, whether it's extensible, whether it, it whether the naming conventions or the standards are proper as we have decided in our team, and so on. So uh, there are these other people who would look at code, and if they feel that something could be done better,
Mhm.
or if they have questions about why was it done in this way, and did we also try some other ways, then they could add comments and have a discussion to see if this code can be improved further. So code reviews are just in a way to collaborate uh, with each other with respect to a particular code which solves some particular problem, or maybe which is, let's say, just an automation test.
Mhm.
So it's to collaborate with each other about the code itself.
Okay. And discuss about the code.
Of course, there are different other ways to have collaboration. It does not necessarily have to be just code review. So like some teams I know that uh, do pair programming always, and they don't have like a PR, like a review process, or the review would be just maybe a group of people just coming over to the desk and then having a look at the code and then saying okay, like having those discussions there itself. But there could also, so that's also one way of doing code review. But like other tools like GitHub, for example, give you, or just Git itself gives you branching and strategies to help you review code
Hmm.
with with the branches, like not checked into the main, for example. So so in that case, you could easily do code reviews when like on some other person's branch. And remotely, so you could have discussions, like add some comments in that particular review, in that particular, let's say, pull request,
Mhm.
and have conversations there itself. So it could even be asynchronous conversations there.
Understood. Thank you. And some people seem to have a checklist for code review. Like,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts? Do you have a checklist?
There definitely are a couple of things that I usually do. I probably don't maintain a list as such, but it's there in my head in some sense. Um, so maybe I just walk through what are the things that I usually do, right? Now the first thing that I do, and I'm talking from a reviewer perspective right now, not from
Okay.
a person who actually raised the PR, for example.
That's an interesting point to note as well. Both have equal responsibilities, the one who submits the code and the one who is reviewing the code as well. Okay, so we'll talk as the reviewer. Yes.
So the first thing that I usually try to do is understand, uh, let's say, if it's an automation test, right? So I try to understand what the test, like what we're trying to test, and I try to understand like the flow. So, uh, like flow of what could be tested, uh, what are the different things that we want to actually check in that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not like this is before looking at the code itself. So let's say there are maybe some user stories, or maybe we could just have a discussion and with somebody to understand what is it that they have actually implemented. Right? Usually, a lot of people have stories on let's say some boards which actually convey that okay, these are the flows that need to be tested. So having that in mind helps, because otherwise later when we look at code, we could have questions like, hey, why was this also not covered, or why is this done, right? So just having that scope in our head is pretty useful. So I would start with what we are actually targeting as part of that particular code PR, let's say.
Okay.
The second thing I do is, so when I know what we are targeting as part of it, I also spend like maybe just 1 minute thinking how I would solve that problem myself. This is also before looking at the code. And why I do that is, well, there are two reasons. One is, if I when I look at the code later and I realize that, oh wow, they've done it in a very nice, like in a better way, it's a good learning for me as well. Uh, or if let's say that I feel, hey, I had thought of this way, this is a very different approach. Maybe the approach that I'm thinking is better. So then it could be a good conversation starter as well. So having a brief idea in our head itself before we look at code also, like, it helps me. So that's probably a good thing to do as well. The third thing is then I actually check out the code and also have it on my local, so that for me, navigating across files is easier. Of course, like let's say there are, you could probably easily see the diffs in well, the PR itself on, let's say, GitHub or GitLab, whatever. But also, like, having that code locally kind of helps me, because then I actually look at it from the start and see exactly like how it flows. So how all different methods in different classes are called. It's just easier for me to navigate when it's on my local machine. So I prefer checking out the code and looking at it. But then I do a combination of both. I look at things on the actual GitLab as well, because there could be possible that certain files which I didn't see in that flow were also changed. So looking there also helps to tell me that, hey, these are these other files which are there, but maybe I didn't know about it. So doing a combination of both sort of helps me. So I prefer that. But it's of course up to individuals how they like to do it. So now that I have code in my local, now this is the point where I actually start looking at code itself, right? And there are a couple of things that I try to pay attention to. One is how easily readable is the code, right? And that's probably important, because most of the time, right, even when we're writing code, we're spending a lot of time reading code. So I think I read in some book that we spend 70% of the time reading and like definitely lesser time writing. And that's because like we're scrolling up and down and seeing, hey, what was done earlier. We're checking if there are some other methods that can be reused while we do our implementation itself. Or we're checking maybe how was this done before, so that we could also have the similar, let's say, standard and all that. So reading usually ends up taking a lot more time of our day, like even when we're actually sitting down to write some code. So that's why readability is pretty critical. So when I'm reading other person's code, since I'm reading for the first time, like it would be a very good indication that is the code easily readable and understandable, and is the, let's say, the methods are named in such a way, let's say, that the methods are actually doing what they are saying they are doing. So those aspects I do consider when I'm looking at the code. And since we're talking about methods, I just want to emphasize a couple of more points. So one is, of course, naming of the method. It should be easily conveyed that what it does, and it should really do exactly that. And the responsibilities of that should be like just one thing, and it should do that one thing well. It shouldn't be doing too many things, right? So that's another aspect that we look at. So let's say that sometimes a method is let's say that it's a reporting sort of method, right? Which after your test run just sends an email. For some reason, we needed it, for example, and let's say it does that. And let's say that it's actually reading from that one particular method is pretty long, let's say 50 lines, and it does a couple of things like reading the actual results, then picking up only the things that it needs, then formatting it in some sort of an HTML, and then sending the actual email as well. So with the let's say subject and body and all of that. Now this method, I mean, of course, yes, it's the responsibility of this method, but having all these details in that one single method is going to make it extremely difficult to read, extremely difficult to debug. And if somebody wants to change something later, then we wouldn't know, right? We would like probably end up spending a lot more time. So in this case, we would want to have some level of abstraction. Like, yeah, okay, we are, let's say, first extracting something from the result, and then formatting into an HTML or whatever. All those things could still be separate methods, having just that particular single responsibility. So when we separate it out, basically we're creating different levels of abstraction, but we're also making it way more readable and maintainable. So these are like certain areas that I would look at when I'm doing code reviews. Also, when it comes to responsibility, it's not just responsibility of the method. Like we should also think in terms of responsibility of the classes. Like should it actually be in this particular class? Like maybe let's say it's a test class and it has find element by ID something which is actually interacting with the application. Should it be in a test class or should it be in another class which represents that page? Right. So those kind of aspects also I would look at when I'm reading the code. So responsibility of the method, responsibility of the class, all of those factors also come into play. A couple of other things that I would also look at is are certain, let's say, heavy operations being done often? And why I say this is because of an experience that we had very recently. Right? We extracted out all our locators into a separate config or a separate file. Locators for that were being used in our test code. And when we did this change, what we did was we would read from the file and then we would pick that pages, that particular locator that we wanted. Now, what happened was that every time we needed a locator, we would actually read from the file. And reading from file is a very heavy operation. Right? Instead of that, we could have just read that file once at the start and kept it in memory, and then we would just be able to read the locators from that memory directly. It would have been faster as well. So, but at that time, right, when the person was writing that code, they didn't think of it. Like they just saw, oh, is it picking up the right locators? Yeah, fine, it's done. But we realized this a little later that hey, it's actually a very heavy operation that's happening very often. So we need to do something about it. So looking at these kind of aspects also in code reviews will help to see if some things can be made more efficient. So thinking of that, like efficient in terms of like the memory used, or efficient in terms of how heavy the operation is, so maybe in terms of time and so on. Like those aspects could also be looked at and thought about when we are reading code. And some other things that we also usually look at is whether like the coding standards that we have decided as a team are met. Of course, there are many tools available which can help us do this automatically, but there could also be maybe a few standards that are, let's say, just agreed upon within the team, but maybe we're not using any tool to detect those. So those are certain areas that we would want to check as well. Like in terms of coding standards, right, I can give some examples. So, for example, indentation. Let's say it's Java, and it's okay if we don't have indentation. It's okay if we do have like two spaces or maybe a tab and so on. And like different people in the team have different preferences. But what would help is to have an agreement with the entire team that this is what we're going to follow for this particular project. And when that happens, there is like consistency in the entire project, and consistency helps readability as well. So having that kind of a standard for your team, irrespective of whether it's your preference or not, like it has to be the team preference. Having that standard will help in readability. So we also sort of look at are our standards actually met. It could be many other things also, like let's say end of the line there should be one new end of the file there should be one empty line. So that's one like small requirement. If it's a curly bracket, should it be on a new line or should it be in the same line as the, let's say, method declaration or the class class declaration. So all those different things are what we would want to have as a standard, so that when we see it, we can just easily filter out those things which are like boilerplate code and just look at things that matter. So when it's following a standard, it's easier to do that. If it doesn't follow like conventions, even if it is like different for every different file, then it becomes a little more time consuming to actually read. So that's why having these kind of standards help. So those are some certain other aspects that we look at as well. And one important thing that I want to mention for code reviews is how do we give these review comments? So of course, like when we look at code and we might feel that, hey, something could have been done better. One thing that I, as a reviewer, always try to remind myself is to try to understand why the person did it in a particular way, instead of just directly jumping into saying, hey, he should have done it this way. That's just a rude statement, probably affect relations as well. Maybe that person had given the thought and had some other reason for not following the way that you are thinking. So it's better to have a conversation instead of having a statement which sounds a little accusatory. So I would always probably try to ask, hey, I see you've done this. Can this also be done in this other particular way? Do you think it would be better? And then they can give their opinion. So like a question would just always help them give their opinion, and not a question like, I mean, instead of saying, did you try this? Just did you try this? Or instead of saying, why is it like this? Just being a little more polite, because you would probably also want them to be polite when they do your code reviews. So, yeah, so just like having those statements which encourage conversations are nice. Like it's a good thing to do. So yeah, you would word it like that. So that's, I guess these are like a couple of points that come to mind. I think there's also another point, like so when you're looking at code as well, right? I mean, I did speak about responsibilities and did speak about like whether the namings, all of that is fine. I also want to add that we should also think about reusability and like extensibility also. So like a lot of times I mean, it's possible that maybe somebody didn't realize that there was an existing method that they could have reused for this scenario. So, or maybe you have an idea of something that's already present, but it could be modified a little so that it can be reused. So like looking at those aspects also kind of help, and that eventually makes our code maintainable in the long run. So instead of having a lot of duplication, we would sort of enforce that certain things are maybe made a little more modular and reused. And similarly, if we write something that's like very specific only to that case, but let's say that we know there is something else that is going to come up very soon, which will and mean that we have to come back to this method and change it again. Instead of that, we could try to write it in such a way that it is a little more generic, so that it could be reused easily when we do something else, when we write another test, for example. So thinking about a little in terms of extensibility also would help. So these are like a couple of other aspects that we would probably look at in code.
Are there any tools that you have already used and you feel they are helping you?
We use a lot of linting tools. That is for having like coding convention standards, right? Like those tools tell us about.
So is this the right spelling?
Yeah. So like there are these tools which tell us whether our like conventions. Let's say for Python, in our like variable name, we would separate words with underscore. But in Java, maybe we would use like a camel case, right? So this linting tool would tell us that, hey, we've not used like a proper standard. Or it could also tell us, hey, this could have been a private modifier, but we've mentioned it as public, so we can change it.
Hmm.
right? Or it could talk about the spacing and integration related things that we spoke about. So they can do a variety of these aspects. So we use tools like tools for this. There are also some like SonarCube, which also give us a little more, like they do a little more analysis and could also give us a little more information. So those are something that we use. The other thing is we also integrate this as part of our build pipelines or like our CI. So even if somebody doesn't run it locally, when they push the code, it would be run and it would fail. So
Hmm.
so we ensure that it's also test checked there. Yeah, mostly these tools. Of course, we could also like if we could also have like a test coverage tool which tells us that hey, are these things tested?
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, for production code, of course, we have a lot of these available. Um, for testing our test code itself, I think a lot of us don't do it. I haven't really done it myself, but I know some people who do, and I've spoken to a couple of them, and it's pretty nice. Like for example, let's say that before the start of our actual test, we want to set some state. So we want to make some API calls and ensure that this kind of state for that particular user is already present. So in that case, you're writing some API calls, and you want to ensure that those calls like actually happen before the start of the test. So you could have the test for these things in your framework itself, and you could maybe have some sort of code coverage for these helper utilities or other things that you have. So that's another like tool, maybe kind of tools that we could actually have in our code base as well.
So small utilities,
Mhm.
and their purpose would be to.
Like utilities in our code could be just some generic things, right? Like let's say we need to do some post and or some get calls before our actual, let's say, UI test.
Hmm.
So we could actually extract that out as a helper or a util and could use that. And those things can independently be tested as well. So yeah, just that one.
Okay, so when you were mentioning about coverage, I remembered this link, which is just saying where is it? Yeah. So yeah, an old article, but seems still valid. There are like 101 types of coverage being listed here,
So
or rather
okay,
101 measures of testing coverage. Okay, so you can start with here, right? So it goes with line coverage, branch, keeps on going. So we might not use all of it at the same time. Being aware of such things, being aware of what can we apply now, what can we use now, might help.
hmm.
Right? So I've just put the link uh, in the notes. So that's about coverage. Okay. Uh, Now we have talked a lot about. We have started with the scope as like what does the story um, do? Why is the story written? Then we
Hmm.
talk about how would I do it. Then we take the code in the local. We check for readability because we spend most of the time reading the code, then writing the code. Then okay, you give an example of the reporting method. Does it do one thing or does it do a lot of things? Uh, why we should extract and then abstract into multiple methods? What happens? And what should the responsibility of each of the method or class be? And if there are heavy operations, why we shouldn't do or how we should do it. Then coding standards within the team, the agreed upon standards, then how to give these comments, and then also focus on reusability, extensibility, and whether the code works, that gets tested on the through the automation, or we also use some tools to highlight the issues. In fact, our teams also use Sonar Cube, so yeah, I'm aware of why it is a good tool to get the issues out. Right? With this, for someone who is submitting the code, when can you submit your code as okay, ready for code review? We can quickly finish up in a 2 minute, and then we kind of close for today. When do I say
Okay.
I'm ready for code review or my code is ready for code review?
Actually, there are. I think a lot of it depends on how the team works together,
Mm-hmm.
right? For example, there are some on our team, let's say, who even though it's not like complete, right? They know they still have a few more tasks to do. They would just maybe call somebody or like call as in right now it's all virtual, so virtual call, share screen, and say, hey, you know what, this is the approach that I'm thinking. Do you think that I could think about something else, right? So that kind of conversation could start way earlier, and I actually would prefer it being earlier because then there is not a lot of rework at the end. Right?
Mm.
Otherwise, usually towards the end, if somebody gives you a comment about changing it drastically, then you would probably spend a lot more time than you would have if you had had that initial discussion itself. So my preference would be, when you pick up something and you have some big idea in mind about how you want to do it, just have a conversation at the start itself. Of course, in a lot of places this is not possible. So you could still, do the like code completely and the think about all these different aspects that you are doing with value review as well, and see for yourself whether you've covered these aspects.
Mm.
And then you could still submit the code for review. And of course, there are going to be review comments. Will be in a lot of cases. So one important thing for us to tell ourselves is it's okay. It's okay to get review comments. It's not a bad thing. It's actually helping us learn, right? So we need to look at it in a positive way, so that we don't feel offended and hurt, or sad that you're always getting a lot of comments. And it could be daunting at times. Like if you have a lot of review comments, it could be scary. Uh, but it's okay. Just let's take it like step by step, one at a time, and try to fix them, slowly. It's okay. It's okay. And yeah, one more thing. Like one point that comes to mind is now a lot of times we might get a lot of review comments if our actually code is very huge.
Mm.
So it would make sense to, even if it's just one task, it would be nicer if we could break it down into smaller logical subtasks that can be that somebody can review independently.
Mm.
And when that happens, like since they're smaller chunks, maybe the uh, like you're looking at it independently, maybe it's easier for the reviewer as well, and easy for you to also make changes if there are review comments. So so try to, like, it's nicer to sort of break them down into uh, smaller chunks. Actually, some of our teams have these things also, where like our development team has a rule that if there are more than 500 lines of code changes, they will not review it. You have to break it down. So I mean, you could set some kind of, those kind of guidelines as well, so that it's easier for both reviewer and the person who actually submits the code.
Mm.
So yeah, these things, and just actually, this also brings me to another point that, like from the reviewer perspective, is, well, don't just keep giving areas of improvement as comment. Like sometimes something might be done very well, and just a small compliment there could go a long way. Like it could boost up the other person's morale. So review comments are not just to, not just for, but it's also to say well done, for example. So yeah, we could also do that.
Right. Got it. Review comments.
I think we do very less of appreciation in code reviews. But yeah, maybe if we make it a practice or habit, then it will be nicer for the entire team, I guess.
Mm.
Yes, that's true.
Good. Perfect. So that's a lot of
Sorry, one more thing about
yes.
like if I am the one who submits code review, there is one article from Angie Jones which I had really liked. She had these 10 commandments of code review, something like that.
Oh,
Uh,
oh.
so that's worth reading as well. I'm trying to find the article. Yeah, it's called
Navigating code
10
review.
Commandments of Navigating Code. Yes, yes. So she has mentioned some nice points like, yeah, maybe the review comment was a little, let's say, a little harsh, but
Hmm.
don't think about, oh, why did that person give me a comment like that? Just think, just don't take it personally and try to look at the code and try to improve the code. So those are nice points from a person who submits for code review.
Right. Okay. Fine. So I will add that image here. I'm just checking if I can add an image. Is there? I'm just learning
Hmm.
Notion. Not used before much. Okay. So I will do that and. So I'm stopping presenting. Good. So code review, I've also added a few more bullet points without adding what it is, so that the listeners can add anything that we have missed. Right? And yes, I think day by day we are touching important points and then we are discussing in depth. So good. Thanks for your time once again, Lavanya, and let's continue to do this.
Thank you for giving me a platform to do this.
Thank you.